Alan.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm a little bit late. Sorry.
You have life to live. Okay, do you want to do the intro?
No, it's better that you do it.
Okay. Well, hi everybody, and welcome to round 6 of 2 takes on 10 records, or alternatively known in Sweden, in the Swedish, let's talk about vinyl records. Actually, I don't think that was Swedish. I think it was English, I just said, but
Yeah, I guess so.
and so today, again, Jonas, it's great to see you. And at 8 p.m. in Sweden, 11 a.m. here in Victoria, out in the West Coast. So we have a slightly, not unrecognizable, but a slightly different approach today. Do you want to describe what we're going to do today?
Yes, we are going to, as usual, pick 4 records each that we have in common in our collections. Then we are going to show each other one surprise record. And I think we said in the middle of all this, we are going to cut things off with our 3 best finds of 2022. Thus far, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
and I mean, shit, 6 videos already. It's kind of crazy.
It's legendary now. I mean, people are
legendary.
People are talking about this. Well, several people are talking about this. Most of them were married to, but anyway, there we go. So, alrighty. So I think we're gonna kick it off with you, aren't we, Jonas? So how about it?
I'm gonna start with a record that is, talk about cult status. I'm gonna talk about Pet Sounds by Beach Boys, and this is how that looks.
What is that? What are you holding?
Yeah, I know. When you sent the text to me and said that we could show Pet Sounds, talk about that, I thought it was perfect because I have had sort of a recent reissue of Pet Sounds up till maybe 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. Then I got this one. This is Carl and the Passions So Tough. It's a twofer, so you got this Carl and the Passions on the first side and Pet Sounds on the second side. And the reason I bought this is because there's a guy, I don't know if you know him, but there's a guy in the States called Michael Fremer. And he is well known in sort of audiophile communities, stuff like that. And he has his YouTube channel called The Tracking Angle, I think. He wrote for Analog Planet. And he said that this is by far the best pressing of Pet Sounds. This is the best sounding edition ever of Pet Sounds. Wow. So I had to, I think I paid, like, in near mint condition on the records, I think I paid like €8 or something like that for this. And who's
the band on the other side, though? Is that Carl Wilson? Or who's the?
I think that it's Pet Sound or Beach Boys, but just one of those, like, it was released in 1971, I guess, or 72 maybe.
Oh yeah.
Carl and the Passion So Tough. I don't know. I haven't even listened to this disc. I've only listened to the Pet Sounds side. Looks like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and should we talk about the record? Everything that has been said about that record had been said. But 1966, it's the sort of the project that threw Brian Wilson into insanity, I guess, or at least starting. I think that the other boys in the Beach Boys were touring, and Brian was staying at home recording music. So yeah, and Pet Sounds is said to be one of the best records ever recorded. I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree that it's one of the best 60s records, but it's a great record. So yeah, what's your take on Pet Sounds?
First of all, I'm fascinated by the copy you have. That's excuse me. That's a very cool thing to have. I'm in the middle of what I think is a lifelong struggle to hear what other people hear when they hear Pet Sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's got a great song at the beginning of each side, albeit, not necessarily the most sophisticated, lyrically compared to some of their competitors. But otherwise, all the way through, for me, it seems kind of vanilla, boy, girl, kind of weepy, high school passing notes kind of level schmaltzy stuff. I mean, it's kind of maudlin, I think. And so if I say, okay, well, never mind the lyrics, I can ignore the lyrics for AC/DC or whomever. I can ignore the lyrics for anybody sometimes when I just want to listen to the music. But the other piece is, this is getting, I think you kind of alluded to this. For me, this record is just drowned in reverb, right? Yeah, I know there's some techniques that were kind of novel here, which were maybe exciting to listen to in 1966. But in general, I just find that it sounds overproduced. And I think, the melodies are fine, but it is kind of schmaltzy. It's a bit of a downer as a record. It feels like you're talking to a guy, at like a university party. He's just been dumped by his girlfriend. And this is the record that you get, as he talks through his beer, right? So I don't know. For me, I have it now. I'm sort of, every now and then I think about selling it. I think I probably have that more recent reissue. I bought, this is all very kind of all analog and redone and all the rest of it. But whatever about the production, I think the Stones and the Beatles at the time were way ahead musically. And if you, on top of that, in terms of message, like, forget it. Like, it doesn't surprise me that these guys end up doing like fundraisers for the Republicans in like the 1990s, this kind of thing. Like, this is kind of, they were not a heavy duty message band. Not that you have to be that to be good, but always struggled. I respect the fact that lots of people love this record. I just, again, about every 5 or 6 years, I put it on and go, this is the time that the magic is going to be revealed. And no.
No, I've tried to read up on it also, because I think that reading up on records or artists and stuff like that, most of the time at least, takes the record to another level, and you can appreciate it a little bit more. But I can't really say that's been the case with Pet Sounds. I mean, it sounds great. This edition sounds great. Good bass and especially good separation. You get the details, because the stuff that I've been listening to with Pet Sounds has been a little bit muddy, but in this case you get the good sort of studio version of it, where all the sounds, and there's a lot of sounds, come through. So yeah, a little bit controversial, but 100% of the ones on this video thinks that's a little bit overrated. So I guess it's a little bit overrated.
Yeah. And it's kind of it's like, the fact that I don't get it, doesn't mean that it's not a good record. It says maybe as much about me as it does about the people that dig it. But anyway,
yeah, sure.
I don't get it. So, all right. So we're next one, are we? So let's talk about, well, kind of a different kettle of fish. Rush, the very first record. My cover is pink, although most are red, I think. I don't know. Is your what's the color of your cover?
I forgot the records. They are upstairs. Shit. I'm gonna run and get it.
Not a worry. I think people can see this one, and they can also imagine what it would look like if in fact the Rush lettering was red. So Rush fans kind of differ in their appraisal of this record, right? And I think it kind of depends whether you're a Rush fan who likes them because they're a prog band, or if you're a Rush fan who likes them because they also play pretty heavy duty rock as well, right? Yeah. And like hard rock. And so is this like a way station in the way to real Rush? No, I think this is like, this is them, rock, or 2/3 of them anyway, rocking out in ways that they would occasionally later on. And it's a different record clearly than the stuff they'd go on to produce in the later part of the 70s. But it's clearly a Rush record. And I think as just a rock and roll record, I think it's incredible. It's got 5 real bangers. Like the first 3 songs on side 1 are just amazing. In the Mood, which is kind of poppier on side 2, and then Working Man, right, which is a song that really blew them open and raised their profile as a band. The other thing which is kind of funny about this record is people often say, oh, well, this is when they were sort of trying to rip off Zeppelin, But actually, if you listen to this record, intently, it's not Zeppelin that they're sounding like. Actually, Sabbath. They sound like when they play hard rock riffs, that's the sound and the tone that Alex is getting his guitar is like Sabbath. And yeah, and I guess the last thing to say, well, I'll save my comments about John Rutsey because maybe you have some as well, but about the original drummer. But anyway, so I love this record, and in some respects, it scratches an itch that Rush didn't scratch again for me until kind of into the early '80s, I would say. So just in terms of the hard rock bit. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't say I'm a huge fan of Rush. That's also one of the bands that I haven't really got into, but the debut record is actually the only one I have left. I've sold everything else. Moving Pictures was the last one that I kept for the longest of time, but I sold it too because I never listened to it. It's like one of those bands like Marillion or something like that, where the progginess for me just misses the mark. But this is me. I know that, and I think that it's fascinating with Rush's followings, because if you're a Rush fan, you're a diehard Rush fan, like really a diehard Rush fan. And I think it's cool, but it's never been my thing really.
Yeah,
I'm a huge prog dude, so I love each of the musicians. I mean, Geddy's bass playing and singing is fantastic, and Alex guitar work, and I mean, we don't have to talk about Neil Peart. I mean, what a magician he was on the drums, insane. So it's just like the entire package is not for me.
Yeah. And this has got John Rutsey on drums, of course, but the only album he's on. But whatever reasons they had when they all parted ways, which I think had something to do with his health as well. But bad drumming, I don't think was one of the reasons. I mean, he's like, the drumming on here is good. It's different, but it's good. Yeah, we saw them in Vancouver in I'm going to say 2016, something like that. Their last tour, obviously. And yeah, we were surrounded by true believers, but it was okay. It was kind of almost a religious experience for certainly a lot of people there. But yeah, I'm anyway. Well, I'll mention them more in a bit in another context. So we'll just we'll move on. So we move on to Oliver Nelson then.
Yeah, Oliver Nelson 1961. This is a pretty recent purchase for me, so it's not one of those records that I've been listening to from when I started listening to jazz. And that's kind of strange, really, because when reading about jazz and classics, sort of the pillars of jazz, this is often mentioned. Oh, cool that we had different.
Yeah, this is like a early 70s Japanese press. So it's got, I don't know, you've got this is the most recent one on Impulse, 2022 or 2020 or late 21 maybe. Okay. I've got the red label with the ABC and all that, like the early 70s. I think it's like a 70s.
That's awesome.
Something like that. Yeah, it is good, although I'm still sniffing about, thinking about getting it, because I'm trying to get those early impulses in first pressings, because I don't know why, but I am.
It's Impulse, so that would be awesome. I think that everyone's playing on it. Bill Evans, Roy Haynes, Eric Dolphy, Oliver Nelson, obviously, Paul Chambers and Freddie Hubbard, top players doing perfect playing. I don't know. The first song, Stolen Moments, is probably the most known on the record, that if you hear it, you have heard it before. But yes, it's a solid record. It's just not one of the pillars, in my opinion. And that cover artwork that you have is better than this one. That's a beautiful artwork.
Yeah, I do like it a lot. But I forget which one is actually the definitive version. Actually, I think
that this is the first one.
Is that still a first pressing you have there, though? Is it? Sorry.
No. This is they are doing, like, Impulse are reissuing stuff now, and I don't know who's doing the reissues, but they're doing awesome reissues.
Yeah, I've got a few of those as well. So it's one of those. Okay, maybe I'll grab that. But yeah, so this, I mean, it's this was one of the very first Impulse records that I gathered, and I was a bit surprised by it, because the other stuff I knew on Impulse was stuff like was Coltrane, right? And
Yeah.
well, this is not Coltrane-y at all. I mean, he's an arranger. He goes on to have to do TV and film arrangements and all the rest of it. So this is all about the production and the arrangements, but well, not all about, because as you say, there are these incredible musicians on there, right? And you're right. I think it's hard to look past Stolen Moments as like the standout track. Freddie Hubbard is just crushing it there. Eric Dolphy is playing this amazing flute. There's another track I really like on side 2, which is Yearnin', which is like a nice slow blues. But there's tons of variety on this record, and it's and when I first put it on, I'm like, oh, this is okay. But actually, I find myself that like the theme to Stolen Moments just pops into my head like all the time. Now it's just one of those. It's like an earworm. And so it reminds me of anything. It reminds me kind of the work that Gil Evans did. It's where it's very arrangery. If that's a word.
That's a word. Definitely a word.
But it is. I think it's a great record, and it's one that I think kind of certainly grows on me over time. So yeah.
And I love Freddie Hubbard's playing. I think that Freddie Hubbard is one of the best trumpet players. At least for me, one of the most interesting trumpet players out there. Just a fantastic tone. Yeah.
Technically brilliant too, right? We'll talk about in a little bit, but yeah. Okay. So anyway, Oliver Nelson. So I gotta get my
just have to say we have a fantastic lineup today.
We do.
Really good.
These are all, there are no duds, no well, unless you count Pet Sounds.
When it comes to sort of talking wise, we don't have any duds.
No, not at all. All right. So the next one we're going to talk about is this little known record by Herbie Hancock, Headhunters. And this is really interesting. So as I think we've talked about before, and as you know, Jonas, I love jazz funk. I love funk music in general. I love soul music. I really get off on the funky soul directions that jazz goes on in the late 60s, which aren't for everybody. It turned a lot of purists off. Fair enough, they wanted to hear what they wanted to hear, but me, I really dig it. And so if you were to type in, into Google, what's the most famous jazz funk record, or the best jazz funk record, this record good chance it would be the first hit that would come back. Although this isn't even the best jazz funk record that Herbie Hancock did. Right, which I would say is Manchild, right? And I don't think it's the best jazz funk record that the rest of the band did, because the first Headhunters record, which of course is like the band that was backing up Herbie here, and they go and they make with Mike Clark, incredible drummer, right, and Bernie Maupin and those guys, like the records they put out are way funkier, just I mean, really quite trippy. The problem I have with this record, to be clear, it's a great record, right? But problem I have with it is, well, first of all, it's pretty heavy on the jazz and the funk, but it's kind of heavy on like sort of Herbie's kind of space jazz, techie, millions of keyboards, millions of synths. Like he's in the middle of a candidly kind of drug-fueled kind of orgy of technological exploration in the early 70s. And so the percentage of this that you can actually dance to is actually pretty low, because it's he's doing all kinds of really out there soloing, but some of it sounds really harsh to me. Like his keyboards sound kind of harsh, and I like and I feel like he needs a bit of an editor, right? So Chameleon, there is actually an edited version of Chameleon, which I much prefer to the full length version on the record, because the full length version has these extended solos that he does that I do not think are that musical and that beautiful. And people are probably going to be slam me for saying that, but I really I don't think that full version is great. And I also think the army of synths that he has on Vein Melter is a little much. Had he had a better had a producer that reins some of that in, or if he chose to rein some of that in, I think I would have liked this record a lot better. But you can say it does have some great moments on it for sure, particularly back in that riff, and it leads on to lots of great music from all the people in this record, whether it's Herbie or the other people on here. So yeah, I'm of two minds about it. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a brilliant record, but just as you say, I don't think that it's Herbie's best record. And I haven't listened really to Headhunters and explored every individual on that sort of list, so I don't have much opinions about that. But it seems like a record that sort of runs with what Miles was doing with his fusion work, working with fantastic musicians, making his own thing, and then Herbie took that and he developed the fusion, maybe going a little bit more towards the funky side. Miles also did the funky stuff with on the corner, but yeah, it's if you're going into jazz, I guess that this is a pretty good starting point. And you can sort of research Herbie's back catalog and what he's been playing on before, but also going forward. And I totally agree with you on the sort of the techness of it. And he really went bananas, didn't he, in the late 70s and was it early 80s when it got really like Future Shock, I think it's one of the records called. Can't listen to that.
I would say too, he does an updated version of Watermelon Man on here, which that actually is. Do I like it better than the original? I don't know, but it's certainly a very inventive update and a really different take. So I think that's kind of cool about this record as well. So
he had a little bit of a hit with that, didn't he? When it came to this version of.
Well, that was how originally the original version is how he made all his money, right?
Okay.
If you read his autobiography, he's like basically Watermelon Man saw him through the 60s, just the royalties off that track alone, because not only did he make money off his recording of it, Mongo Santa Maria
Sure.
It was a huge hit, and he basically lived off the royalties he got from Mongo's version, and I think like 60 other people covered it or something. So it's
I need to read that book.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's an interesting insight into Herbie, and you talk about that obsession with keyboards and stuff. Well, it comes out loud and clear. There are long patterns, and then we plug this in, and then I wanted to get this version, and then the box arrived. Well, we had to redo the trail, this kind of stuff. So anyway, it's not quite that bad, but it's anyway.
Sure. My turn.
Yes.
Still going strong with the jazz, I guess. This is one of my favorite records, just period. And it's been like, I don't know, I can almost say the exact, like I knew exactly where I were when I heard this the first time. It just blew my mind, really. Mingus, this is the Black Saint and the Sinner from 1963.
Yeah, 2 or 3. I can't remember. Something like that. 63. 63, but this is a Japanese pressing. So this is 63.
And I think this is the 70s sort of something. This is the one that you had with Oliver Nelson.
That's the 70s Impulse repress. Yeah.
Mingus going out here with a bigger band. I think it's an 11-piece sort of, not orchestra, but band. And it's said to sort of mix different styles and genres, especially, obviously jazz, but classical music and also African sort of rhythms. But he says in a sort of interview or something like that, he said that it's a folk record, but maybe Mingus folks. I think it's a fantastic 10 out of 10 record all the way through. I love this record. One of the best jazz records and one of the best records ever recorded.
It is a remarkable record. I've only had this record now for about 3 years, so I probably listened to it 4 or 5 times, I think, and I'm still groping my way towards what my view of it is. But it was one of the first, because I got into Mingus kind of late, and it wasn't the first Mingus record that I heard, but it was one of the earlier ones that I heard, because I've only really been collecting recently, when I first heard it, my first reaction was, was actually not positive. It was like, what the fuck, because I thought this guy was supposed to be good, right? That was my initial reaction, and that was
I think that
go ahead.
the cover artwork, I think that the cover artwork is a little bit deceiving because it's so minimalistic, but the music on there are so bombastic. So it's just like the cover artwork is lying to us.
I would say, yeah, it's a good point actually. But I would say that what I've come around to understand is that there's the raggedness to Mingus is also kind of like the beauty and the joy of Mingus. It's like when you put on a Mingus record, it's a little bit like, it's about as far away from some sort of like hermetically sealed kind of Creed Taylor kind of perfectly produced kind of thing as you're going to get. It's almost like you're intruding on somebody driving like a wagon train, full of people and random musicians and jugglers, like down an alley somewhere, and he's shouting at them to stay in line, right? And it's sort of like this whole thing, like it undulates, like it comes in waves, right? And he uses the brass to kind of create these big crescendos at the end, sort of go, see. And I will say it absolutely holds your attention for a full 40 minutes. And there are some remarkable moments on this. I mean, is it hummable? Not particularly, right? But that's not the point, I don't think. It's sort of, I don't even know if I can say what the point is, but all I can say is it really is, it's an unforgettable record. And it always brings you back thinking, okay, what am I going to hear this time? Because there's so many different things, so it is, as a piece of art, it's fascinating. And I haven't yet settled on, do I love this or am I glad that I experienced this Mingusness, but I actually want to listen to something else now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sure. It's a little bit like his autobiography. What is it called? It's called Beneath the Underdog. It's unreadable, but maybe it's because I'm not like English is not my native language, and I read it in English, but it's so out of control. But then again, it's just like his music. It's chaotic and beautiful at the same time. And I've been going back and forth on getting the reissue. They put out Black Saint Simulator and Mingus ×5 on the same reissue, and I bet they sound fantastic. But I've played my copy of Black Saint Simulator so many times that I sort of got used to the pops and ticks and stuff like that, because it's not a perfect copy. So when I listen to it on, say, Spotify, I sort of miss the pops and the ticks. It's become a part of the music for me. So I can't part with that. So I'm not getting the reissue.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Anyway,
should we do the best of?
Sorry, we kind of we were going to do that after record 4, and then of course we got carried away. So yeah, let's do it. So this is the halftime show in the video, where we're going to talk, each of us, about the 3. I guess I was thinking the 3 records that I've gotten in calendar 2022 that I've been most excited about, and I've really been the happiest to have acquired. So that's so. Do you want to talk about your 3 records?
Yeah, I did a little bit of other take on it, because I did a video maybe 2 months ago, something like that. I did a halftime sort of finds of 2022. So what I did was I took one record, or in this case an artist, that I have been obsessed with starting late last year, but I got this in January, I think. And then I took my absolute most recent vinyl find that I am super stoked with, that I've just listened to all the way through. And I also went with one of the sort of the biggest records for me this year. So that's my take on it. Should we do every other?
Sure, you start, and then I'll go, and then we'll go back and forth.
Okay, so let's start in the beginning of this year and the end of last year. I got so into Monk, it was insane. And I have invested in almost his entire catalog since, but in different sort of vinyl boxes and stuff like that. So to sum that up, I'll show you this. This is the Mosaic box set of the complete Blue Note recordings of the Thelonious Monk.
Wow.
I was super glad to be able to score this. I did a trade with a guy. So
when does the date from that box set?
The box set I think is late 70s, early 80s, maybe. Let's see here. Comes with this booklet.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it sounds great. Limited to 7,500 copies. And he did actually have another Mosaic box set with Monk, with Black Hawk. Let's see here. I don't know the label, but he did later in his life. He did a stint of records, which is just so. But they did a Mosaic box set of that too, which I have in my to listen to pile. But yeah, so Monk was one of the artists, and this is definitely one of the best finds.
How many LPs are in that?
4, I think. Yeah, 4. And it sounds great too. For what it is, it's recorded in the sort of 40s, I think. So,
yeah, pretty exciting. So the first one I'm talking about is less exciting than that, but it still was it was a great thing to get. So I am a big Sonny Rollins fan, as I think you are and other people are as well. And and his 50 stuff I absolutely love, and I'm also a huge fan of contemporary records and the production values that they managed to achieve there. And of course, the great coming together of all of those different things is his record Way Out West, which was kind of a one-off because he happened to be in town. I don't know if he was playing with Miles or I think maybe he was, but anyway, happened to be in town. Les Koenig buttonholes and says, "Let's make this record," and he shows up and they make Way Out West, which is his trio record, which it was kind of wild as well. But I had like I forget how I came into it, whether I bought it in a sort of a moment of rashness or somebody gave it to me. I can't remember, but I had like one of those bullshit Russian knockoff, wax time kind of releases, which did not sound very good at all. And I did a bit of research, and what I found is that yeah, you can go and try and seek out an original pressing, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. But there is an original jazz classic pressing from I think 88, which had, as all the reviews online said, this has like breathtaking sound. Well, I'm here to say this absolutely has breathtaking sound. This is
cool.
It's remastered by a guy called Phil Delancey at Fantasy Studios in Berkeley, and you can get this still. You can pick this up for $20-$30 if you're clever on Discogs. It sounds incredible. So this is so it's like whatever 88 or 89, the original jazz classics version. So again, not a very remarkable find in some respects, but one that where it really was an incredible value for the very little money I paid. So that's there's number 1 right there.
That's the first thing I'm gonna do right when we cut this off. I'm gonna go out on Discogs and buy it, because when this is released, everyone is rushing to Discogs to buy up all the copies. So I'm gonna
we'll create a stampede with our recommendations, Jonas. So what's next for you?
Yeah, okay. The next one, obviously, I mean, this is I think it's a second German press that I found with an intact banana. So obviously one of the best finds. I mean,
you gotta love an intact banana.
You gotta love an intact banana. Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah.
This is not. It's the airbrushed backside and stuff like that. So, but in my opinion, getting this was not getting a record. This is a bloody institution. It's a piece of art.
Yeah, it's an artifact is what you've got.
Yeah, it's an artifact, exactly. Yeah. So I have it on I have a small sort of grail wall that I've built, so I can put like 9 records up, and it's never gone off the wall. Nice. It's up there all the time. So, and I think it's gonna stay there.
So here's a record that I just picked up the other day. When I just happened to be at a little record shop called Vinyl Envy, which is a little record shop here in Victoria. And this is a 1961
Cool.
UK pressing of Art Pepper's Getting Together. Now, he of course has a famous record called Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm Section, where he is paired with Miles Davis's then rhythm section in, I think, 56 or 57, something like that. This is kind of round two of that, because this is now, I think it was done in 59 or 60, but he's now with Win Kelly, Paul Chambers, Jimmy Cobb, and Conte Candoli, whom I know less well, but basically with Miles's now rhythm section, right, at that particular point. This sounds, first of all, musically, I actually like it better than, maybe I've just heard Meets the Rhythm Section too much. I find this more interesting, more subtle, more kind of mature, and less kind of sort of chirpy happy than, than the previous one. But the sound quality is just out of this world. There's just once again, it's that contemporary studio and Koenig and Dunan and like working miracles. Love this. It's got a beautiful, nice, heavy feel to it as well. The cover is a bit well loved, and somebody's signed it, of course, on the back, Lewis Williamson. But anyway, that to me made me extraordinarily happy to get it, and then even happier to play it, because I was blown away.
I still need to get into Art Pepper. I don't think I have any records with him, and I don't think I've ever like sat down and really listened to him. And I read a lot of jazz books, and people are saying that the Art Pepper autobiography is the best book to read about jazz, and I haven't read that too. So I have a lot to explore.
He confesses to some crimes in that book, and but also the thing about Pepper too is his 50 stuff is great. He's like, his story is, he's battling heroin addiction the whole time, right? His 50 stuff is great, but he also has a real renaissance in the 1970s when he gets cleanish. And so some of his stuff that he puts out on a variety of different kinds of labels in the later 70s are they're actually really worth exploring. He sounds great. So yeah, but that record there is a good place to start. I would say that, or Meets the Rhythm Section. I would recommend. But all right, what's up for you? Your third?
Yeah, my last one. This is one that I've been looking for this forever, like since I started collecting records, and you'll understand why. But and it's one of those records that I couldn't really get into, and I think that I still can't really grasp the record, like and I don't know if it's meant to be understood. This is a first UK press of Troutman's replica with Captain Beefheart. I mean, iconic record for so many reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you though. I respect it without thinking that I understand it particularly,
I really tried to listen today, and that's a great sounding pressing of it too, I have to say, because it's extremely separated, and every sort of instrument in its chaos is perfectly detailed, and so when I listened to it, I mean, one guy is playing something, and in the other speaker, the other guy on guitar is playing something totally different. And Beefheart is singing something not in tune at all in the middle. So it's just like, but then again, if you go back a little bit, you have fantastic free jazz that sort of explores the same themes as Beefheart was doing here. And if you go forward in time, you have like noise records and so let's say hardcore records, punk, post-punk that
counts as radical
into this. So
does that count as radical? Maybe, right? Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what to. And it's such an mythical record also. Like, I've read so much about this and the recording, and that he locked the band members in the house for a year, and I don't know where the sort of the myth starts and the music ends, you know. So I'm really happy that I have it, a copy now.
So
Yeah,
if
and
you're watching this
actually,
video and you know how to appreciate Captain Beefheart, please do leave in the comment in the.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So speaking of grails, I too was very fortunate to find there are two records that I've been searching for forever, and you know, to not pay like $1,000 for it, kind of thing. And one of them I just got thanks to a viewer who's becoming a friend of mine. I won't mention his name because I don't want him to be harassed or get solicitations, but I will say he's an impulse completist and has overflow. And one of the things that he had more than one copy of was this record, which is Alice Coltrane's El Daoud. This is a first Canadian pressing from whatever it was, 70 or 71, I forget the particular year, which bless him, he gave to me for a very reasonable price, and it sounds. I have to say, it's not often that I'm, you know, practically moved to tears by how good a record sounds, and maybe it's because I've been looking for this for years and years and years, you know.
Yeah, probably, but
I actually have there was a kind of a gray market knockoff that came out a couple of years ago, which actually sounds not too bad. But this is a whole different thing. It's and in particular the bass that comes through on this by Cecil McBee, I think it is, but just before we oh sorry, no, of course it's Ron Carter, not paying attention. But yeah, it's incredible. Pharaoh's sax is incredible. Joe Henderson's sax is incredible. Alice's playing is out of this world, and it's just an otherworldly experience. This record is one of my favorite records of all time, and the playing and the sound of the record is just remarkable. Done by Ed Michel. So yeah, this made me, and you know who you are out there. This made me extraordinarily happy to get this record. So there you go. Grail, Grail achieved.
cool. This is recorded Sunday, and I think yesterday has to be that Pharoah Sanders passed.
Yes.
So very, very sad. I got but the last record that he was on, I guess, at least that's
with Floating Points, that one.
Yeah, exactly. I just got that this summer now, so listen to it for the first time just 3 weeks ago or something like that. It's fantastic. So sorry that he couldn't, or he's not going to be able to release more, because feels like he had a sort of a run now.
Yeah, he was still playing great music, eh? So yeah,
definitely
rest in peace. You know, what a guy. Okay, so now we're back into the records we both have, and so I'm going to talk about this one, which is Freddie Hubbard's debut on Blue Note, and with a phenomenal lineup, and particularly with not just McCoy Tyner on piano, but Tina Brooks on tenor, who, I mean, really the magic of this record. Well, I mean, Hubbard is playing is fantastic. There's a lot to love about this. I don't know which version you have. This is the Kevin Gray remaster.
Yeah, I have that too.
Yeah, it which is lovely, and it's funny because I just put a video up last night, which was on with all my oldest records in my collection, and it's funny because they were almost all West Coast jazz, right? But all from like early 50s, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Why don't I have it? And I realized, of course, that all the Blue Notes from the 50s are so expensive that I never bothered to get them because their reissue series, although there have been some troubles, some of the reissues are really, really great, and I've gotten those. So I have no Blue Notes from the 50s, but I've got a whole bunch of contemporaries, you know, and fantasy and this, that, and the other. And it's just that kind of East Coast snobbery. If it didn't happen in New York, it wasn't real jazz. But actually, anyway, so blah blah blah. But that's why I have a recent copy. I love the pairing of Brooks and Hubbard. I love the way that when Hubbard is doing these amazing solos, Brooks is often comping underneath the solo, which is unusual for two horns to be doing that. And I guess like a week after this, they then made True Blue, Tina Brooks.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically Hubbard returns the favor. And for me, I mean, so much to like. The title track is great. There's a ballad on side one. What is it called? But Beautiful, which I think is great. But side two, I think, is where you hear the full range of Hubbard's ability. On his debut record, with just magic. So love this record, and obviously so much more to come from him. What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's a fantastic record. It's one of the first sort of reissues from Blue Note, just like you said, Kevin Gray stuff. And I've actually, let's see here, this section,
all the white spine
is only like Kevin Gray reissues on Blue Note. I've been buying the stuff that most of the releases I have bought, except for those that I already had early pressings of. But Open Sesame I had never listened to before, and it blew me away, not only sound quality wise, but also Freddie Hubbard's playing. And as you say, Tina on the sax is doing a fantastic job. He died pretty young, or did he do something else? I can't remember the story behind it.
I know he did not live a long life, but and one's tempted to sort of to guess, but I have no idea. I was just gonna realize my record's in the sun. I need to cut out that. There we go. Dealing with some light issues here in this broadcast. There you go. I'm not sure when he passed.
Oh no, I can't remember, but I think he didn't record that many records.
No, but he was but that which he did do is
fantastic,
and as good on here as he is anywhere, really, I would say. So yeah. All righty.
Okay, so my last one, and moving drastically away from jazz into the more psychedelic realms, I guess, with Magic Mystery Tour.
Yes.
Also one that we have in common. Do you have a what reissue? This is the 2009, I think, stereo reissue, which sounds like shit.
I've got a booklet inside. Do you have the booklet?
I think I have a book. Yeah, I have a booklet.
Yeah, it's got this booklet is glued into the
okay.
Is glued into it. So
I wish I had another one. They released this in 1960. Was it 1967? I think 67, just after Pepper.
I've got a Canadian press, and am I right in thinking this only came out in North America and it was not released in the UK as such?
No, not as a LP, but it was released as a double EP. But I don't know if the tracking order or the tracks were exactly like, because Polyphone and Capitol, they did sort of the US versions and the UK versions, and Beatles had a lot of singles, I guess. So they just picked some. I have Capitol pressings of Revolver and Rubber Soul, and it's a completely different title list there.
Yeah. What do you think?
But this is a fantastic record, not all the way through, in my opinion, but I mean, it has some of the best stuff. The Fool on the Hill is one of my favorite songs by the Beatles. Hello Goodbye is also awesome, but All You Need Is Love, Penny Lane, and Strawberry Fields Forever, especially Strawberry Fields Forever, like one of the best songs. Such an amazing song.
Yeah. For me, I gotta say this at times is my favorite Beatles record. And I would say it is certainly, for me, I consider it to be their best second half record of their career, right? Like, I'm not going to say it competes with necessarily Revolver, or Rubber Soul, which are kind of two of my other real favorites, but stacked up against the other records, even Abbey Road, which I think is great, I find this more enjoyable to listen all the way through than those. And it's actually the deeper cuts on here that I dig the most. Like, I love Blue Jay Way, which is a fantastic, trippy, freak out kind of a song. I love that the instrumental, flying. I don't think it's a weak song on this this record. And yeah, I think well, maybe, I mean, the title track is all right, but otherwise, all the way through, I think this is as strong a record, you know, as anything they ever did. Even, and funnily enough, it's not really it's kind of a compilation in some respects, right? Because they're pulling these singles together. But the other thing, which I think is kind of why this is good, is you know, when Brian Epstein dies, that's when the Beatles start to unravel. But he'd only just died here, right? So you know, they're still very much functioning as a band when they're making all these tracks, and so it sounds cohesive in a way that the White Album a year later, which they basically make 6 months to 8 months later, not right. This is much more coherent sounding group, like a group. I'm not a bunch of people just trying shit in the studio, right? So yeah, that's why I love this record. So anyway,
yeah, it's the theme for the 6th episode is controversial. It seems like that anyway. We have controversial sort of statements on classic records. I love it.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't know how controversial that is. I think I get a feeling that people are feeling the love for that record more and more. All right, so the last record that we have lined up that we both have is a real fave of mine, Band of Gypsies. And I'm going to say something else a little bit controversial here, because at times, for long stretches, this is actually my favorite Hendrix record. As much as I love Are You Experienced, as much as I love Axis, and as much as I love lots of big parts of Electric Ladyland, I made a remark in a video like a while back that I said, as much as Mitch Mitchell is a great drummer, which he is, I dig the funky sound that Buddy Miles and Billy Cox bring. So it's a very different band, right? And you know, Noel Redding's not really a bass player originally; he was a guitar player, right? So he's okay. Mitch Mitchell is incredibly talented, but very kind of jazzy and very kind of frenetic drumming, and because Jimmy, kind of speaking of Pharoah Sanders, because Jimmy often gets a bit free jazzy when he plays, and I would say he's obviously, you know, greatest guitarist ever, or certainly in the, you know, in a group of one, you know, in that category. But he, in his sort of more virtuoso moments, he'll sometimes depart the beat and go off and do this, that, and the other. And I never felt that Mitch and Noel do a very good job of kind of keeping the groove. You know, like with Pharoah Sanders is going to play, you know, wild ass shit as he would. You need a Cecil McBee, right? You know, and a Lonnie Liston Smith and people like that to kind of keep the groove going. And I never felt that Mitch and Noel did that as well as they might have done. Whereas here, you know, you totally get that groove going, which I think is a better foundation for him. Whereas, like, you know, like you're talking about Rush, sometimes it's like three guys all doing the same thing, you know, doing virtuoso stuff at the same time. It's like, you know, it's too much going on. People don't really like the background singing that Buddy Miles does. I can kind of get that, and I don't think that Buddy Miles tracks in here are particularly great. But who knows? I love the riff on that. Machine Gun, that is, I mean, this is arguably his greatest ever performance, right? And captured anywhere. Power of Soul is an incredible track, and those are 3 long tracks, right? And it's great music. So yeah, I mean, is it his best? I'm not going to say it's his best. Have I liked it more than the others for long stretches of time, going back and forth? Yeah, I have. So yeah. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a fantastic record. It's maybe the one that I've listened to the least of his records, and got me to obviously buy Buddy Miles records also. Is this the final Hendrix record that he put out?
It was the only official live release. I think it came out before he died, because it's recorded New Year's 69-70. So he dies in September 70. So it must have been released in early 1970. So yeah, it's an official canonical while he's still alive release. Maybe you're right. Maybe the last one before he dies.
Yeah, because it feels like he's finally going somewhere with developing sort of in a totally different way. Felt like that anyway, that it's sort of something is boiling, and you know, you can talk about the collaboration that was planned with Miles Davis. That would be awesome to have heard the result of that if he was could continue his life. and maybe also the funkier side. I don't know. It's cool to sort of imagine.
Have you ever heard? There's a record called "9 to the Universe," which is a posthumous release. It's a bunch of outtakes from basically jam sessions that he did in the studio in basically 69, 70. Thereabouts.
Okay.
Maybe there's some 68 there as well. That's another. If you're interested in where like what might have been where Hendrix was going, that's actually quite a good record to listen to too. It was. Reprise put it out, I'm going to say like 81 or 82, something like that. But yeah, it's worth, you can get that for not much. And there's a lot of schlocky, shitty Hendrix posthumous releases out there, but that one is one I think to pick up if you see it. It's called 9 to the Universe.
Cool. So I'll do that.
Alrighty. So now it's time for surprises.
Yes.
So what's your surprise record, Jonas?
Do I get to start?
I think you do.
Okay, so I thought of I wanted to keep on the theme of Beach Boys and Beatles, and I don't think that you know about this record because it's a Swedish record, and it's definitely, I'll say it's on par with those classic records like Sgt. Pepper, Pet Sounds, Odyssey and Oracle. You know, the sort of the foundation of the best pop records ever recorded. This one by Tages, the Swedish band. It's called Studio. It came out 1967, I think, maybe 68, but it's a little bit later than Pepper. But this is a masterpiece from start to finish, like really. And it's doesn't matter if it's a Swedish record. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend it to anyone who sees this, because it's all sung in English, so you don't have to worry about the not understanding the lyrics or something like that.
Like ABBA, yeah. What kind of music is it?
What kind of music?
Yeah,
it's like garagey pop, a little bit like maybe if Siri is screaming at me. Maybe a mix between Stones and Beatles, something like that, like somewhere in between. They definitely stretch what they can with the funds that they have when it comes to the studio sort of production. But the music is still very sort of wild in a way. But it's definitely pop songs, and 5-6 of the songs on here, in my opinions, are singles that could be played on radio back in the day in any country. Like, so yeah, highly recommended.
How and when was it? When was it released?
I think it's 1960. I'll say 1967.
Oh yeah.
I think it's 1967. Yeah.
Bodes well.
And still, this is it's been quite rare. It's like it's in the Pocora Records books, and it's when it comes to Swedish sort of beat and mods, when you talk about those rare records from Sweden, it's mentioned, but it has a little bit of a down period, I think, right now. So you can get it pretty cheaply, and there's a reissue that is more pricey than a good original press. So it's like, yeah, now's the time to get it also if you like it.
Just like you, I'm going to shop now before we put the video up, before there's a run. Yeah. Well, thank you. So Tages, Tages, noted.
Tages, yeah.
That's a great recommendation. Okay, so my surprise is another of the records which my friend who with the Great Impulse collection was able to part with, and it's this one, which I got in part for the music, but also partly because it has just a legendary cover, and it's kind of a rare and somewhat obscure Impulse release, and it's this one. It's
cool.
Danny Richmond's. Do you have this one?
No, but I've seen it, and I've yet to listen to it, but it's one of those that I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Danny Richmond's in jazz for the culture set, and so Danny Richmond, there he is. There, I'll show you a better picture. Hang on, he's there he is. It's the gatefold there. There he is drumming, and as you can see, there's also Jackie Bayard is the top there, and then Toots Tielemans, and I think it's Cecil McBee is complaint-based. There's a bunch of other people in here as well. But those are I guess the main. Willie Bobo, the percussionist, is also on here as well. It's a funny record. It's like if you know the Impulse catalog. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, was he the guy who played with the Art Ensemble of Chicago, Willie Bobo Shaw?
He has a record called Spanish Grease on Verve, which you may have heard.
Okay.
So you all know. And he was a late 60s, kind of that cusp between boogaloo and salsa in the whole New York Latin scene. That's kind
okay. No, I'm thinking about another guy that I think at least. Sorry, continue.
No, it's fine. And he was, and Willie Bobo was like a big session guy doing congas and bongos and things like that. I don't know how much time you spend immersing yourself thinking about the Impulse catalog as a whole, but it's interesting because there's most of Impulse is kind of, throughout its history is like kind of cutting edge jazz, right? Moving the boundaries, but also really, and then there's also a subset of like bringing in, old name, famous old jazz guys to do kind of one-off reunions, which are a lot of cool records there. But there's also like a subcurrent of kind of schmaltzy, weird, sort of poppy kind of one-off records. And so this is one of these records where it's sort of navigating between these poles of like, this is mid-60s, cultural relevance, jazz credibility, pop appeal, and then like total campy schmaltz, right? And it's kind of like it's like all the songs are kind of political songs, so they're like the Berkeley Underground, the John Kennedy Memory Waltz, Blowing in the Wind. But there's also like a really weird cover of Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16. There's a song called The Spider, which is about the Berkeley student newspaper and so on. But and some of these songs are actually pretty good, particularly the second side is actually pretty good on here. But it has the feel of like, when like the kids were all on Instagram and then mom and dad got Instagram accounts, so all the kids move over to Discord, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's got this is like the mom and dad get on Instagram kind of record, right? Where it's a bunch of older jazz musicians trying to write and play music that would appeal to the kind of the young Berkeley counterculture kind of set. And it sometimes the arrow hits the board, but it doesn't always hit the board. So but even forget all that, I just love the cover. The cover is awesome, absolutely incredible. So one of the real kind of one-offs and a sort of a famous and this is I think a first press, or is it a first press? I can't remember. I think it's an early it's a Canadian so there's a Canadian they use the same stampers, but it's a Canadian press. Spartan Impulse puts out though if you just a pro tip, if you see a Spartan release of an Impulse record from the right era, buy it, because the quality is usually very, very high. So
cool.
Anyway, so that's my surprise there. So is that it? Have we come to the end?
I think that's it.
Wow. Well,
we made it.
We did make it. Okay. Well, look, Jonas, this was fun. We'll have to do it again. Alrighty. So thanks everybody for watching, and it's goodbye from Canada.
Yeah, and Sweden.
All right. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.